webinar. Let me first apologize for the technical difficulties that led to this delay, but we're going to get started now. We're going to be discussing how to listen to your customer and make use of what you hear. You'll hear how travel site Orbitz is doing that successfully. Speaking about the strategy and results at Orbitz will be Stacy Simons, Senior Director of Consumer Insights. She'll be followed by Susan Ganeshan, Chief Marketing Officer at Clarabridge, a company that specializes in gathering and analyzing customer feedback. After Susan speaks, we'll take your questions. You can ask any questions at any time using the message box on your screen, and you will be getting an email within the next couple of days with instructions on how to obtain today's slides. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Simons from Orbitz.
Great. Thank you so much, Don, and thanks everyone for attending today. I'm going to share a little bit of our story at Orbitz and how we became the #1 travel site using voice of the customer practices. So today, I want to tell you a little bit about Orbitz first. And we are a worldwide company. We have consumer-facing brands all over the world. We also have a very significant and large global platform for all of our websites that was completely built in-house. We offer 3 lines of business. The first is probably the one most people are familiar with, which is our direct-to-consumer, where you can go and book flights and hotels and vacation packages, among other things, for leisure travel or for unmanaged business travel. We also have corporate managed travel solutions under our Orbitz for Business brand, and some of our clients include IBM, GameStop, and Burger King. Our third line of business is actually private label distribution, and we actually power some of the most recognizable brand websites in travel for American Express Consumer Travel, Capital One, and Southwest as well. We're based in Chicago and have offices all over the world. So when I joined Orbitz a few years ago, I first started to look and see what we were doing as an e-commerce organization. How were we measuring and monitoring what our customers were doing and saying? What I learned was that our measurement was fairly limited and it was very siloed. So when we thought about business measurement, it was really in terms of quick data and transactional data. So how many flights did we sell and how many room nights for hotels were booked? And then on the customer insight side, what we had is fairly limited data collection. There were just a couple pockets where we were actually getting feedback from customers. And really there wasn't a lot of distribution or sharing across the organization. And there wasn't analytics support as well, because there really wasn't the data to even do the analytics on. So this really created some challenges for the organization. So what I observed is that there was a lot of gut-based decision making, and so that was really a challenge for the organization to really make educated decisions and reduce their risk. So one of the things I started looking at was the travel journey. Where would we want to get insights? So we didn't have a lot, so we could start from the ground up and build this consumer insights practice. And there's a lot of areas here that you can learn about when you're talking about travel. From a foundational perspective, we can look at who is booking travel today. Are they booking using suppliers like hotels and airlines? Are they using online travel agencies like Orbitz? What is their awareness level for different brands? And then how do they shop? What's important to them as they're using desktop sites or mobile apps in their shopping process? How do they interact with customer service? And is that expectation being met of that experience? What is the booking process like? So, we have great quick data about actually who's booking and how often they're booking, but what is that process? What are they going through as they progress through our site? And then during travel and post-travel, are we communicating with them? Are we giving them the information that they need to have a successful trip? And then finally, global insights. As a global business, that's definitely a key opportunity for us to look for both similarities and differences across the globe in the different countries that we operate. So really I sort of laid this out and said, here are the things that I'd like to make sure we are learning as a customer insights organization. And I did an audit to see what were we actually doing as of a few years ago versus where were we not collecting data. The one area that actually was kind of the bright spot was our customer service practice. So we were interviewing people who had gone through a service experience on the phone about how that worked for them. Did the agent help them? Did they resolve their issue on the first call? So we were doing a lot of things in that area in particular. So we did have a little bit of a window to the customer through customer service in particular. But I would say most of the other areas, foundational insights, website, mobile shopping behaviors, the booking process, the during and post-travel process, and then finally global insights, those were not things that we were really covering with a great degree of depth. In fact, in some areas, we really had no prior work that had been done. So lots of great opportunities to build our knowledge base in all of these areas. So next, I'm just going to take you through a quick chronology of sort of how we built out the capabilities to collect these different sources of the voice of the customer. Some of them are programmatic, so they're things that we survey on day in and day out or collect data on. Other ones are more ad hoc. So those are things that we would do based on business needs. So in 2010, I mentioned we were doing customer service. We continue to do customer service voice of the customer studies and understand how they're feeling about those examples of those customer experiences. And we've added on to that quite a few other things. So we've added on foundational insights, things like customer segmentation and understanding who we were targeting and what was important to them. Loyalty, which I'll talk a little bit more about in another slide or two. How do you understand what people want from the loyalty program? We recently launched one and wanted to understand these sort of foundational things before we started designing that. And then we layered onto that our post-booking customer satisfaction survey. So this was after someone had actually booked a trip with us. What was that experience like? Whether it was through our website, our desktop site, our mobile website, or our apps, or potentially by phone as well. What were those different experiences like? So those are really important things that we are now collecting on a day in and day out basis to understand what the customer experience is like. We have done and started into the area of global insights. We still have a long ways to go, but now we're doing research in many of the countries that we are actually doing business in, which is really giving us a great window into where there are similarities and where there are differences between different countries. And there's some really fascinating things, especially when you compare Asia to Western Europe, for example. And we are using our global platform as a common base, but we know that we need to have specialization for different countries based on their needs. And then finally, one of the most recent additions to our data collection for Voice of the Customer is actually an on-site survey. So when somebody is on Orbitz.com, they may get an invitation to tell us a little bit more about what they were trying to accomplish and if they were able to accomplish that task, and just how satisfied they are overall. So many millions of people come to our site, and this really gives us that glimpse into that group of customers or visitors that we had not seen before. So lots of great new studies that we've introduced to help understand the travel journey. We had all this data, but I guess the question is, can you use it in your business? And what we found is it's not just about the data collection. It's actually necessary, but it's not sufficient. The things that we really need to have in addition to great data collection around the voice of the customer is you need top-down support from senior executives, both from a resource perspective, but also from an integration into the day-to-day running of the business and strategic initiatives. And we've been really lucky at Orbitz to have that on both fronts. In addition to that support, that core support, having access to data and making sure people in your organization have access to that data, if not held too closely within the insights function, sharing and collaboration around the data, and finally, analytic tools. And I'll tell you a couple of examples of how we are doing those different pieces of the puzzle to make sure that insights are really getting integrated into the fabric of Orbitz. So I mentioned the top-down support was something we had in place, which is great. On top of that, we've layered better access to data. So some of the things we're doing is storing all of our survey data from those programmatic surveys in our data warehouse, which many people at Orbitz are data analysts. And so we have given them access to have that survey data, to connect it to other types of information we have, We can connect it to contribution margin. We can connect it to their web behavior. And all of those things are really helpful for us to better understand our customers and kind of link the what they're doing to the why they did it, taking transactional data and survey data, or web data and survey data, and putting those together. And then we also created a central repository of consumer insight studies, sort of an internal website that anyone in the organization all over the world can access. And this is where we would be storing studies that are relevant to a broad cross-section of employees at Orbit. Sharing and collaboration has been another very important part of our process. So a couple of things that we're doing is regular presentations and distribution of results to a very wide group of people. We are also doing semi-annual Voice of the Customer reviews with a cross-functional team of leaders who represent both the data collection of the Voice of the Customer, but also people who can actually build new technology and features on our site to solve the problems that we're hearing. It's been a really effective way to not just collect insights, but take them to action. And then finally, analytic tools. One of the most important analytic tools we've added into the insights function has actually been Clarabridge, and Susan will tell you a lot more about that later, but it's really been something that has helped us make sense of all of the vast amounts and hundreds of thousands of comments that we get from customers in a very data-driven way, which is something that the Orbit's culture is very receptive to. So I'll talk a little bit more about Clarabridge in particular and how we're using that. So we're using it for a number of studies, a number of open-ended answers to questions. One of them is our post-booking customer satisfaction survey. So the things that people tell us they like or they don't like, we are able to look and see how many comments are positive, how many comments are negative, and how does that trend over time? What are the themes that we're seeing from those comments? And it is really interesting because you definitely see change over time in these categories, but it gives you a sustained way to look at something consistently over time. It's not a subject to interpretation if somebody is coding something by hand. Here we have built keywords and models behind this so that it's a consistent interpretation and analysis over time. So we've also used Clarabridge data to just really look at our data in many different ways. These are just a couple of examples of the ways you can look at data. So you can look at sentiment and positive and negative by category. You can see which comments and words are things that pop up the most, the relationships between different words. It's a really, really powerful way to think about text comments from different angles. And then we've also used it for our Orbit's Rewards program. It was a great early indicator of how people were feeling about that program when we launched it. This data is available to us real time. So if someone does a survey today, we will have that data into Clarabridge tomorrow. And so it's a really, really great way to see what's happening real time with your business. So just one example of how we're using consumer insights in a very integrated way, and Clarabridge is part of that, is looking at Orbit's Rewards. We designed this program about 3 years ago. We started to work on it and actually just launched it in October of 2013. And I'm going to just take you through how we use insights in each of these 3 phases: the design of the program, pilot testing, which we did for about 6 months, and then the actual rollout of the program. All the while, we were doing testing and economic modeling to make sure that our loyalty program was going to meet our financial goals as well as meet the goals of our customers. So in the design phase, we started by collecting foundational customer needs, really listening to customers to understand what they liked and what they didn't like about the loyalty programs which were out there in the marketplace. And then the actual program design, the features that we built in, we did a lot of quantitative research to understand what was important to customers, what kinds of features could they do without, so that we could design the program in the most compelling way possible. When we started doing our pilot testing, we started to collect Net Promoter Score, and that was something that really let us see that this program was actually making our customers happier by having this in place. It was one of the earliest indicators that our program was going to be successful. We also collected qualitative and quantitative feedback so that we could refine for our rollout, which was really helpful. It told us what people liked, what they didn't like, and what we could improve. And then also from an e-commerce perspective, we did a lot of work with how we brought this idea of rewards to life on our site. It really is integrated throughout our entire site, our language, our visuals, landing pages, etc. And so that's been a very important part of testing, is making sure how it is coming across to the site visitors and customers is working for them. And then finally, the rollout, which we did in late October of 2013. We continue to collect Net Promoter Score, and we see that there's definitely a difference between people who are in the program, even when they are completely new to brand. We still see higher Net Promoter Scores. We're using ongoing feedback, so the qualitative feedback we get. We're working through ClearBridge to look at all of that feedback and identify those areas for improvement that we're seeing. We actually see this interesting progression. People who, because the program's been out about a year now, people's issues are changing, so they're becoming much more sophisticated about the program, and this feedback is letting us see how sentiment and their themes have changed in their comments over time, so we can also adjust how we're talking to them and communicating with them about the program. And so I think, one of the things we're so excited about is we have almost 3 million members in this program. It's free to join, but there's still an action that a customer actually has to take. So in just a year, we've been able to hit this great milestone. By the end of this year, we should be at 3 million customers. So that's very exciting for us as well. So just to wrap up in a couple of slides here, we've really come a long way to integrating consumer insights into the Orbitz business and move beyond just looking at that quick data that we started with and that transactional data. So some examples are we've connected customer satisfaction to customer value. And sometimes it really takes this equation to convince someone to take action, but we've actually seen the more satisfied a customer is, the more likely they are to recommend Orbitz to others, the more contribution margin they will provide us. So it's something that's so foundational, but it's very important to actually demonstrate that connection. We also now have an understanding of major dissatisfiers. So using text comments, using surveys, we can actually identify how our rewards language is working for customers. We have looked very in-depth at our online exchange process for air tickets and how that works for customers, and have made significant changes to that process as a result of this feedback. And then why people cancel hotels and what's the opportunity around that. So even when somebody does a negative action, understanding why that's happening has been something we've been able to take and actually action against. And then finally, we're expanding ClearBridge to other data sources, which is another way for us to just deepen our engagement with text and with our customers in their own voices. And so we've been looking at things like App Store reviews and combining that with some of our other data, hotel reviews, what people say about those, as well as opt-in feedback people can leave on our website as well. So what's next for us at Orbitz on our journey from Clicks to Insights? So there's a couple areas I'll share with you that we're working on. One is more global sharing. And this is extremely important for us, especially because now we actually have loyalty programs in all of our regions. We just launched a loyalty program in Europe with our eBookers brand called Bonus Plus, and so now we're sharing learnings about how loyalty programs are adopted and grow over time with them in particular. We're making more data connections, so connecting transactions to surveys and web analytics to surveys and customer contact data so that we can get a much more holistic picture overall of of how this information all contributes to our understanding of the customer. And then finally, diving deeper. So we know that satisfaction, having more people who are more satisfied, definitely contributes to the bottom line. But what are the specific areas we should be going to improve? So is it people who are dissatisfied with pricing or with customer service or some other product issues that are the things we should address first? So it will really help us prioritize to understand more deeply those reasons for satisfaction or dissatisfaction and how they relate to future value of our customers. So that's just a little snapshot of Orbitz and our customer insights journey that we've been on. A lot of great success and opportunity in the future. Really, consumer insights has become an integral part of Orbitz, and I can say that, for both day-to-day running of the business and for strategic initiatives, It has given us a much more customer-centric place to go, and actually contributes to the bottom line as well by measuring, monitoring, and improving when we listen to the voice of the customer. And some of the things that we have gotten recently that tell us, I think, that we're on the right path is we were ranked #1 in online travel websites by the American Customer Satisfaction Index. That has been tracked for the past 10 years. It was the first time Orbitz was #1 in that index, so we were very proud of that. And we worked with them as well to look at our rewards program and saw that we actually very as well were rated #1 among online travel websites in rewards programs. So really telling us we were listening to the customer, and customers are very satisfied with that. And then finally, just this past Monday, we actually received 2 Platinum Awards from the Loyalty 360 organization, their Customer Experience Awards in customer insights and in technology and trends. So we really feel like we're doing some things right here, but we're really excited to continue to grow our voice of the customer practice and also to continue to work with Chronobridge. And with that, I'll turn it over to Susan.
Great, thanks, Stacy. That was such a great way to highlight the power of listening to the customer and what great businesses can do as they truly embrace the customer voice. What I'd like to do is just take our audience through a couple of more use cases. I think the set of Orbitz use cases are extremely powerful, and I hope we can add to that. What we've noticed is that many of the businesses we work with are highly innovative in the way they're using their customer voice and the way they're operating their business. And some of the secret to that innovation is due to their inherent belief that they need to get closer to their customers. You know, we'd all love to run businesses like Apple, and Steve Jobs actually, as much as he was an innovator, he did that by staying very close to his customers. Other people who are experts in the area of customer service, like Ron Kaufman, who's written a book called Lift Me Up, Service with a Smile, has also indicated, and we all know and believe, that we need to delight customers because they're our best advertisement. But you know it's more than that. You can't simply delight customers on a customer service call or be good in one way. You have to be good in all ways. And there needs to be more substance backing the entire customer journey and the entire customer experience. So what we know is that there are some challenges where your customer sits on one side of a divide and you're on the other side of that chasm. And those challenges come to your business because you have various mandates. One of your mandates is that you need to save money, not spend it. And it can seem like working on customer experience is a place where you're spending money rather than saving. And in fact, we've many customers that prove high ROI in the rates of hundreds of percents and sometimes even thousands of percent ROI on their use of customer experience systems and by pulling those programs through their business. We also know that the other thing that's keeping you from being so close to your customer is your process. A lot of your process is dictated by the IT systems you've implemented or built and integrated, as well as the history, just the way you've kind of always done business. And you've also been limited by your view. It's difficult to take yourself out of your 4 walls and put yourself into that customer's journey. And so typically our views today are very inside. And furthermore, they're within a department. If you're part of the billing department, you understand that business at the deepest level, but maybe you don't understand every part of your large business. And then what's happening is you're measuring yourself and your success in a siloed way. So customer care cares about certain measurements, where other parts of the business, marketing, finance, sales, they care about different measurements. And so all of these factors are really keeping us separate from getting to know our customers. But what we know is that some of the best businesses in the world have figured out ways to get closer to their customers. And here's a couple of examples. The first is United Airlines. They've been using Clarabridge for quite some time. We power their post-flight surveys as well as many of the other ways that they gather feedback about your experience with United. But in one particular situation I'd like to bring forward is that many times in the airline industry, the airline themselves do not have the opportunity to influence the customer experience, or rather it's beyond their control. Things like weather or TSA mandates. In particular, I know because I'm a woman who travels for business and I'm in high tech, so I always carry a laptop. One of the TSA mandates that frustrates me is the fact that you have to only carry one bag onto a plane as long as you've got a roller bag with you. So I can't have a purse, a laptop, computer bag, plus my roller bag. One of the things I've noticed United has done based on customer feedback is when you go to confirm your seat and check in for your flight, they will now, most recently, pop up a notice to you reminding you that you can only have 2 bags. For me, that's a great reminder. I need to consolidate my purse, and I need to move on in making my flight a much more enjoyable experience. So it's little things like that that you can learn about your customers, what's frustrating them, what's challenging to them, and you can make those changes by fully listening to their experience. Other businesses like GE Healthcare use the information that they learn from their customers and from not only the users of their large machines, in this case MRI machines, but the doctors and nurses who put the patients through these machines. And they've gathered literally hundreds of thousands of bits of feedback from those doctors and nurses, and they use that to share with their product and engineering teams. And from that, well, as they peel back the layers of detail about the experience of operating these machines, they're able to update not only the machine themselves, but also the software that helps them, these doctors and nurses, operate those machines, ensuring that it's a smooth experience for usually a very scared patient, and then also nurses and doctors who have to help them through that process. We have other customers like Intuit, who is the maker of TurboTax, who are listening quite closely to your feedback. And everyone knows how stressful and unpleasurable it can be to put your taxes together unless you've got a tool that can walk you through it. TurboTax team had listened to the customers and noticed that they had the most questions for the company when they, and around tax time, when they had a life change event. So somebody was married or died or divorced, and or maybe had a child, and they wanted to help their users through these life events. And so they, again, like the GE Healthcare example, they used the voice of the customer feedback to uncover what were the situations that customers had the most questions on, and they evolved their product towards helping walk the customer in a wizard-like fashion through those life events, making it a lot easier for people to complete their taxes. I'm sure we can all appreciate that that's an important part of our early New Year time frame. And let me give you one last example with Verizon. Verizon is one of our customers who not only listens to their voice of the customer through many different channels like Orbitz does, but they also do it in real time. So take the situation of Hurricane Sandy. This is a situation beyond Verizon's control, but one of the things they knew they could do for their customers is ease their worries in this time of need and trouble. And so what they were able to do is identify that if perhaps they gave those customers that were in the wake of Hurricane Sandy some relief on paying their bills and getting their bills to them on time, as well as free service during the worst of those times, that could mean some loyalty and have a long-lasting effect on the relationship they had with those customers. So it was about reacting and enabling their management team, their business, and all of their decision makers to make the right choices at the right time with that customer feedback. As people were chatting online and saying that they were nervous about even things as simple as paying their utility bills. And so it's companies like these that are being innovative and making bold moves in their business. So the way to do that is actually not as hard as it seems. As Stacy did, and she showed you over a series of time, she was able to give her customers a voice. And the most important thing is asking your customers what they actually think, giving them the right channels to submit their feedback to you. And one of the things we'd like to leave you with is that while you all have surveys, many of you do not have surveys that are structured with open-ended questions, where the customer gets to tell you exactly what's on top of their mind, rather than answer your very static questions that you're pulling them through. So you want to think about dynamic surveying to keep it relevant to that customer's interaction with you. You also want to think about those open-end questions that you can ask that allow them to tell you exactly what's happening for them at that moment. The other thing you need to do is then show them that you're listening. So you need to give them the sense that you've heard exactly what they said. And as you do that, they will talk more. And the more they talk, actually, the more feedback they give you on social sites, through surveys, and other means, the more valuable it is to your business. So you know you can learn exactly what you're doing that is right, but you can also learn what you're doing that's slightly frustrating to improve areas of your business. Once you've shown them that you're listening and truly listened in many ways, the most important part is not to keep all of that data in silos. Do not keep your survey data separate from your social feedback data, separate from your call center data or chat or online data. Pull that all together and listen to those voices in the aggregate. And then make sure that you're not cherry picking the data out that proves a point that you're trying to make in your business, but rather look for themes across all of those data sources and across all of those instances of customer feedback that can help you dig into places where you can improve. The other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of this data will give you insight into how your competitors are being perceived, especially social data, and you can use that competitive intelligence to leapfrog your customer or your competitors. And then finally, let that data that you're gathering drive you to that next level. Use it to figure out where you might improve and work closely with the rest of your business. One of our customers likes to say, rather than throw the data that you learn and the insights you gain through the customer voice of the customer over the wall, don't do that. Rather, walk it to that person's cubicle or office and sit down with them and let the data lead the two of you or a group of you together through areas of possible improvement. And when you do proactively work with these teams, you're looking at both the unstructured feedback in that voice of the customer. It could be in text, it could be in call recordings, could be in those unstructured parts of your survey, together with your structured data, information about your revenue or star ratings if it's online, to give you that sense of how all of this data comes together to drive action in your business. And then take that insight and turn it into something you can use. Most people have a intuition about places they'd like to improve in their business, and if only they improve those areas, they feel that it would be a better customer experience. So some of our customers like to say that it's like taking the data and turning their intuition into evidence, and so allow the data to do that for you. And then finally, activate that voice. So what you need to do is make changes based on this customer feedback, both very short-term changes, as an example of Verizon with Hurricane Sandy, or longer-term changes. Malcolm Gladwell is one of my favorite researchers, and hopefully you've seen some of his TED Talks and read some of his books. But one of the things he talks a lot about is how people who make innovative, bold moves are typically aggressive, and the more aggressive companies and the more aggressive people are more successful. So don't take your first look at a problem that you need to solve and say it's hard or it'll take too long. Don't take that as law. In fact, challenge it and ask to see how you can do these changes faster and in a way that works through your business in the quickest way possible to keep these customers happy and with a better experience. Don't forget, though, lastly, that you need to engage with your customers. Once you're doing this listening, the best thing you can do for yourself is actually to advertise it, to educate your customers on changes that you've actually made or are planning to make based on their feedback, and to correspond with them one-on-one. When you resolve an individual's issues with your business, they are 70% more likely to do business with you again. And so what many companies fail to do is close the loop, and that is communicate back with their customers and engage fully with them. And one thing we've learned through all of our best practices is that closed loop engagement will actually propel you much further. It'll drive customers to give you even more feedback, and it will keep them loyal. Sometimes it's just knowing that they've been heard, even if you aren't making a change, is all they need to know. So what happens when these customers have a good experience? Well, statistics tell us that 66% will spend more with you, and more than half of the people will be more likely to recommend. And of course, when they have a bad experience, not only is it hard to recover, one bad experience takes 5 good experiences to recover from, but they also feel like they want to tell other people, whether that's going on social media or filling out your surveys or emailing or talking to their friends. And it can drive them from interacting and doing more business with you. So that's what I'd like to leave you with, is that this is all worth it, that listening to the voice of the customer is a journey. It's something that needs to be embedded into the DNA of your company, and it's something that will allow you, in the end, to give those customers a voice and give you a recipe for innovation. So our recipe for innovation is 1 part customer voice and 1 part aggressive thinking on how you're going to change and modify your business, and 1 part thinking about how easy it is to do business with you. If you mix these together and you bake them into your business, then you're truly activating the voice of the customer, bringing it into your DNA, and improving along the way. As you see, it can be done, and when it is done, great things happen, like Orbit's becoming reviewed as one of the #1 travel sites. So thank you so much, Stacy, for your feedback today, and I'm hoping that some of the examples we provided you will help you to be interested in learning more about how Clarabridge can help you become better in your CEM program. So with that, I think we'll go back to questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Susan. Thanks, Stacy. We are going to take a few minutes of questions. We are about the top of the hour, and some of you may have to drop off, but we are recording this call, so you will be able to come back and listen to the end. So if you have any questions, please input them now, and we'll take them, and you'll all get an email the next day or two with a link to the recording and to the slides. So let's go to the first question we've got here. I manage customer experience management at a mid-sized B2C organization. Our program is just taking off. We have generally used social media aggregators in the past to track our brand, but I feel we need more. Is this not telling the whole story? How would you prioritize the listening posts? What were the most important channels to capture the customer experience in your business? So Stacy, maybe you would like to start, and Susan might want to add something after you.
Sure. So I would say the priority may be different for different types of businesses. I would say for our example, that listening to customers after they've had a transaction or service experience has been one of the most critical sources of information for us, followed by site feedback. Very specific comments people make about what's happening to them when they're on our website. And I'd say social media would be after that. And it really is just because of the kinds of things people talk about with social media and online travel agencies tend to be more service-oriented than they are pure insights for the business. So, so that's how I would prioritize. But Susan, are there other examples maybe you could share of how companies have prioritized?
Yeah, we actually see a number of customers start with social listening, moving beyond what many social listening tools can do for them today, which is more about the buzz metrics of how many people are talking about you and generally, you know, what sort of themes they're talking about, but actually driving that into a much deeper level of themes across areas of your business or themes about specific products. And so social listening is a great place to start. And we see, I would say maybe roughly a fourth of our customers will start with social listening. But I think that what they quickly realize as they mature their CEM programs is that when people are talking on social, and this might be master of the obvious, so forgive me for a minute, but when people are talking about social, they're very aware that they're being listened to, but not only the business that they're talking about, but their friends as well. And so they have a different stance. I might say, had a great stay at the Ritz, and when I say that, it tells my friends and my audience that I can afford to stay at the Ritz, right? Which, you know, is a lovely thing for, you know, if I want everybody to know that. But I might have a completely different stance when I fill out the Ritz's survey. And I'm going to have a completely different stance if I have to, during my stay, call customer care or call the service desk. And so what we've learned in looking at all of our customers' data is that no matter where you start, you're going to quickly realize that to mature your CEM program, you have to have that complete voice. And in fact, survey data skews rather positively. Social data skews in sort of a neutral way, sometimes very positive, sometimes very negative. And then customer care data or service calls tend to skew highly negatively. And it's only when you slice through all of these listening posts and many others that you have in your business that you're able to pick up the common trends and themes that are truly become actionable when you find those nuggets of gold of where you'll have the most bang for the buck when you do make changes.
Okay. Next question. For you, Stacy, how did you overcome internal organizational hurdles in selling the customer experience management vision to other departments?
I think I probably overwhelmed them with communication. So one of the most important things, though, in all seriousness, was just talking to people in the organization about why it was important to listen to the customers and coming up with small but critical examples of how we could use it to improve things in the business. I think really contributed to the buy-in. I also believe in casting a very wide net, and Susan was talking about sort of breaking down silos. That's also something that I try to do, and try to get people in the room who don't always work together, but may have a common objective at the end of the day of creating a better customer experience. And so by bringing together folks in forums like that, that was another key to selling into the organization.
Okay, question for both Susan and Stacy. Any advice you would give to fellow customer experience management practitioners? What are the top 3 things we should keep in mind when building a customer experience management program? Susan, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I can start. So what we keep hearing, and this is not from me personally, but rather from the collective Clarabridge customers, which is literally hundreds of customers. the number one thing we hear is about communicating your results. It can be difficult to run these programs because sometimes you have to walk in and deliver bad news. Hey, Bill, did you know that your department is the worst performing department according to our customer feedback? That can be hard to do. But once you've gotten through the project of helping Bill figure out how to improve his department, get the funding, make those fixes, make sure you communicate that back to the rest of the business to say, look, we took this group. There were some issues through no one person's fault of their own, or whatever the case may be. We fixed the systems. We fixed the process. Our customers, as a result, are much happier, and we're seeing the negativity in that area has completely gone away or has diminished greatly. Just communicating those results is some of the best ways to make sure that your work it grows over time, but also that you're recognizing that how important that voice of the customer is. I think Stacy also said this as she was talking, which was executive buy-in. To be fair, there are lots of execs out there who say that the voice of the customer matters, and you've got to hold their feet to the fire on that claim and make sure that they continue to see the value in what you're doing, which typically is achieved by relating the improvements you've done back to key business metrics that they care about. And we've talked to many of our customers who said when they've done that, that's when their voice of the customer and CEM programs really got the recognition that they deserved. And the last is by truly listening, and I use the word listen loosely here because it's not just about listening, it's truly about understanding the entire customer journey. I sound a bit of a broken record here, but try not to just look at one bit of feedback. Try not to listen to the loudest voice. Don't just do surveys. Don't just listen to social, but truly understand the entire customer journey. And remember how many places the customer touches you. Remember that 70% of the buyer's journey is done before they even land on your website or walk in your store. And so it's very important for you to understand that entire journey everywhere they're interacting with your business and everywhere they're interacting with your past and future customers so that you can improve that entire experience. Stacy?
Yes, and I would agree with everything that Susan said. And a couple things I would keep in mind is, one, to always have your CEM program be culturally relevant to your organization. I think there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. For example, Orbitz is extraordinarily data-driven and analytic. And so because of that, I wanted to make sure how I collect data and how I store data and how we communicate it is all in the sort of same language as what the organization is comfortable with. It really does help with the digestion of it. The second thing I'd say is looking for small wins. So if you can take one particular customer issue that you've heard from your customers and address that and work with your organization to fix it, that really can just start to snowball into bigger and bigger wins and more issues that you can cover. And then finally, I kind of mentioned this before, but sharing broadly as you can. Not something I think, especially in our organization, but for other organizations, not sort of just sharing with the C-suite, but making sure that you are sharing it broadly because you never know who might be able to help solve a problem for a customer. So the more broadly you can share out what you're learning, I think that will be better for the organization as well.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks very much, Stacy Simons, Senior Director of Consumer Insights at Orbitz, and Susan Ganeshan, Chief Marketing Officer at Clarabridge. Thank you all for your patience. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Remember, you will all get an email with a link to the recording and instructions how to get the slides. Thanks very much for attending, and have a great day.